Welcome to Tune In Guitar Lesson number 8. This is our second last lesson. I'm so excited. If you've made it this far, then you are probably making some awesome sounds on your guitar. And I hope you're having fun. Anybody notice anything about that riff? I did. I noticed that my E string was slightly out of tune, so we're just gonna double check our tuning here. Yeah, sure enough, it's slightly flat. Don't be afraid to take time to tune your guitar. Everyone will thank you. Yeah, that's a little better. Okay, let's warm up. I'm gonna push our BPM up to, we're gonna go 90. Whoa, 90. And let's do doubles on the way up and quadruples on the way down. So listening, we're gonna hear our subdivision in our head before we jump right in and get all panicky. We're just gonna hear it, visualize, right? This is like, before we do that, you got to think of like music almost like sports. You know, you hear about divers and people who have to do like sports, and they kind of like visualize success. All right, your best goal of being able to play something is to hear it in your head first, right? So that's what I'm talking about. Don't just jump right in. Hear it in your head first. Almost visualize it, and then you've got a way better chance of it happening. So where is our quarter note? 1, 2, 3, 4. And if we're doing doubles, we got to imagine 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. All right, and then coming down, we're gonna imagine quadruples dividing into 4s. 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a... Yeah! So again, making sure that we're connecting our notes and keeping everything nice and even. Yeah, okay, let's do a fairy finger stretcher. So whatever version is most comfortable for you right now. Maybe you're doing the 2-finger version. Maybe you're doing a 3-finger version. Maybe you're doing like a last 3-finger version. So remember, we're going 12 on the E string, 13 on the B string, 14 on the G string. I'm going to do the 4-finger version because that's where I'm at. So, but wherever you're at, whatever fingers you're using, let's go all the way down the neck for a warm-up to get our fingers ready. Let's just to make sure we got a review of how to do that, right? So starting 12 on the E string, 13 on the B string, 14 on the G string. If you're adding your pinky, if you're doing 4 fingers, then we're at 15 on the D string. Make sure all your notes are ringing out. And then you move your first finger on the highest string down 1. You're always going to move your index finger first, right? Because that's just the order your fingers are in, right? So the finger closest to the bottom is going to move down. All right, so wherever you're at, whatever fingers you're using, let's go all the way down the neck. We almost made it. That'll teach me to bring my slide guitar for finger exercises. Remember, you can also do it upside down. Upside down sounds evil, but is slightly easier generally. So that just means that we're reversing our fingers. If your index finger was on the high E string before, it's going to be on the lowest string, right? So if I'm doing the 4-finger version, then my index finger's on the D string on 12, middle's on G string on 13, ring finger's on B string on 14, and pinky is on the high E string on 15. Just turning everything upside down. So upside down version. Woo! Shouldn't have ended off with the evil sounding one. Yeah, that's a better way to end. Okay, so hopefully, man, my hands are tired after doing that. We are going to add on to our pentatonic scale that we learned last time by adding a note or two to it to make it a blues scale. So if we remember our pentatonic scale, it's always kind of, there's a major version and a minor version, and it kind of depends what note you're starting on, right? So if I'm here and my pinky's on this A note here, right, I also know that I've got another note down here, F sharp. That's part of that scale, but if we're starting on A with my pinky, then this is going to be A major pentatonic scale. So you can start on 2, we skip 2 frets because it's the E string, to 5, my A note, and then we go 2, 4 on the A string, 2, 4 on the D string, 2, 4 on the G string, and then the B string and the high E string are the same, 2, 5, skipping 2 frets. All right, so if I was to start this on 2 there, that note there is F sharp. So if I'm starting it there with my index finger, that is actually going to be F sharp minor pentatonic scale. But I'm imagining that A is the bottom note, which makes it A major pentatonic scale. Same as if I move everything up 3 frets, and now my index finger is on A, so now it's A minor pentatonic scale. So the same thing on the E string, skipping 2 frets. And then all the middle strings, skipping just 1 fret. So 5, 8, and 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 7. And then on the B string and the high E string, 5, 8 again, skipping 2 frets. Right, so those were our pentatonic scales. We're gonna add, you can add sort of a fun note, a chromatic note. So on the A string here, instead of just going 2 to 4, we're gonna just pick up this little chromatic note in between. We're gonna go 2, 3, 4. Right, so if I'm starting with my pinky, 5, and then 2, 3, 4 on the A string, and then same thing, 2, 4, 2, 4, but now we're gonna add one more note on the G string with our pinky, 5. Right, so it's the same note, like that 3 note we added on the A string, we're adding that same note again. Can you hear that they're the same note, just 1 octave apart? Low, high, low, high. So we're just adding that note again. So we got 5, 2, 3, 4, 2, 4, 2, 4, 5. And then, right, what do we do on the B and E strings? Just 2 to 5 again. Right, so that little chromatic note is kind of, it's just like a little fun guy that you can add in there. So that's if I'm starting on my pinky, right? If I'm starting with my index finger here, I'm gonna go 5, 8, and then 5, 6, 7, right? It's the same shape, just moved up 3 frets and starting with my index finger instead of my pinky. So 5, 6, 7, 5, 7, 5, 7, 8, right? We're adding that note with our pinky on the G string. And then 5, 8, and then 5, 8. So if we go back, if we find a blues backing track, as we do, D, back to A. Right, so that's just nice to even start on that chromatic run, 2, 3, 4. It's a nice one. So don't forget to add some like hammer-ons and stuff. It's a nice lick for you. Don't be afraid to repeat yourself. Right? Also, the chord change for you. You play the same thing, and all of a sudden, your lick sounds new. You could try throwing a bend in if you're there yet. Or you could just get that note with your pinky that we added in our blues scale. So hopefully you have found some YouTube tracks to jam along with in A. The ones that I like, they'll actually like kind of like show the progression on the screen, and then even like the really good ones will like highlight what chord you're playing on the screen. So let's just do a review of the basic blues form. And instead of saying A and D and E, what I'm going to say is I'm going to use the scale degrees of those. So instead of saying letters, I'm going to say numbers. And what that's actually called is like the Nashville number system. So in Nashville, they make so much music, and it's all the same chords, and they just kind of like, they capo it all over the place, that instead of saying the names of the notes, they'll just say like the degrees of the scale. So if we know what key we're in, we know we're in A right now, we could say that A is 1, right? So instead of calling it A is just 1. And then we know when we're playing the blues scale, I'll tell you right now, we use 3 chords, the 1 chord, the 4 chord, and the 5 chord. Those are 3 majorly important chords. When you hear something like a 3-chord song, if you've ever heard of someone writing a 3-chord song, it's very possible it was 1, 4, and 5. They're like sort of like the basic building blocks of like blues and most kind of music you hear. So instead of saying, so A is going to be 1, right? Because we know we're in A, so A is 1. D is going to be 4. So how do we do that? We go through the A scale, A, B, C sharp, D, so D is 4. And then E is 5, right? D, E. And I do that by counting the notes in A major scale. We're going to learn about that. But right now, it's just kind of more important to think of these as numbers. And that way, when you're not playing in A, if you're playing blues in E or G or B or C sharp or D flat, or then you'll be able to follow along. So here we go, playing our blues progression. So we got A. Oh, right, so we're doing numbers. 1, first chord. This is the 4th bar of the first chord. That means we're switching to the next chord, which is the 4. Our 4 chord on the D string. And then back to 1, A. And then to the 5 chord, the E string, E. To the 4, the D string. To the A. And then this guy does something called the turnaround, where it goes to the 5 chord right at the end to know that we're starting all over again. 1, 2, 3, 4 bars on the 1 chord. Now we're going to switch to the 4 chord for 2 bars. 1, 2. Now back to the 1 chord for 2 bars. 1, 2. Now to the 5 chord for 1 bar. To the 4 chord for 1 bar. To the 1 chord for 1 bar. And we're going to turn it around on the 5 chord. Right? So that extra note we're adding is kind of pretty fun. Okay, so I'm gonna give you guys some real shorthand to using these blues scales, and so we're playing A scales, right? Or we're either playing A minor or A major pentatonic or blues scale, right? So if we're playing the A chord, right, that's gonna work out. We're playing the right scale for the chord. When the blues progression switches to the 4 chord, you can still use the A scale, but it gets a little bit right, so then if I go up to that note on the B string, that guy doesn't sound so good when we're on the D chord, right? So you're gonna use your ear. I don't want you to always wait to be told what to play. Like if you hear something that's not working, right, it just doesn't work. You can trust your feelings, right? So avoid that note. But a really good shorthand for the blues is the blues really likes to kind of fool around between the major and the minor. That's why we're learning both major and minor pentatonic and blues scales. So when it's playing the A major chord, we want to have that note, this C sharp note, the C sharp note is what tells you that chord is a major chord. You'll notice, right? So if we're playing A major pentatonic scale, starting on my pinky here, then we get that C sharp note. If we're playing A minor pentatonic scale, then we end up hitting the C note, which is making it a minor sound, right? So you can almost think of it as minor, right, with that C note, and then when I change that C note to a C sharp note, major, minor, major. So the blues does a lot of when it's on the A chord, it likes it to be A major, right? Because we're playing that A major chord. But when it switches to the D, you can kind of start playing some minor blues stuff because that note fits with the D chord. So here's my challenge to you. Can you find a blues progression in A on YouTube? And hopefully you can find one that sort of has the chords written out. But if you can't, then you just kind of have to feel it coming, right? We talked about how you play the A chord for as long as you can before you're bored, and then you switch, right? So try and feel when that change is coming. I believe that the blues is such a part of our culture and all the music we listen to. I believe that you're gonna feel that when it's gonna change, and when it does change to that 4 chord, that D chord, then that's a good cue to try switching to your minor scale. So I'm going to play through this whole progression using basically the A major scales that we've learned, but when it switches to the D chord, I'm going to be playing, moving up to A minor, and you're going to see that it kind of fits. It's a really good shortcut to knowing what to play when you're playing the blues. So let's just start at the beginning so we know where we are. So we're gonna start on one chord. Right, so I'm playing lots of A major stuff, but it's about to switch to the D chord, the 4 chord now. So I'm gonna switch up to the. So I'm really getting that minor note, but now it's back to the A. Did you hear that? So I want to go back to A major. And then the E chord. You can kind of just stay on A major. But when that E comes, you also this B note, so playing 4 on the G. I mean, I would prefer that you just kind of like sound it out, right? The blues has all kinds of things that if you just like phrase it really strongly and you really believe it's gonna work, right? So I really just kind of want you to like have a lot of fun playing with the blues. But the one part where you might, just get jammed up is when it switches to that D, to the 4 chord in the middle there. So let's do it one more time, playing through the blues. Don't just play A notes, man. Just be B.B. King. And play them like you mean them, all right? One note solo. I moved up to that minor note. Right, now I'm just gonna go back to the A note. There's a high A note. All right, so I really hope that you find some tracks to jam along with. If you find tracks that aren't in A, right, remember you can move this scale anywhere around. What if you were like blues and E is a big thing, right? So how would we play this scale if we wanted to play it in E? We'd have to find an E note to either like start with our pinky or our index finger. So because we're learning the scale starting on the E string, we're going to use the octave here, right? Because I can't play behind this low E here. So we're gonna start on the octave. So moving this exact same scale, right? So on the E string, we've got 2 notes separated by 2 frets, right? There's my E note with my pinky, but I've also got a C sharp note down here, right? And then the middle strings, they're all only 1 fret apart. So 9, 11, 9, 11, 9, 11. And then for the B and the E strings, 9, 12, 9, 12. Right, and then same thing, we move the scale up 3 so that we're starting, my index finger is on the E note on 12 there. And the same scale, E string skipping 2 frets, 12, 15, right? And then all the middle strings, 12, 14, 12, 14, 12, 14. And then B and E strings, 12, 15 again. And also adding our blues note, adding that middle guy in there, and then adding our pinky note on the G string. So just for fun, just to show you, this really works. Let's now search blues in E. All right, we're in the right key, we're in E. So we're about to start again, here we go. So that's me starting on E, 12th, right, with my pinky, full on our scale. And it can be funner up here, right, because it's easier to bend the strings up here. So it's gonna have a different feel up here, but same scale. And you can fool around with like a little bit of E minor too. All right, I got a little carried away there, but I don't know. Once you're playing the blues, it's tough to stop. So looking back at our pentatonic pull-off exercise, we'll go back to A here. We're gonna do the minor version, right? Because I think like with these pull-offs, they're gonna feel different like all over the fingerboard. I feel like pull-offs are a little bit harder, lower, because I don't know, the frets are bigger here and the strings are kind of like a little bit less, I don't know, for some reason they're like, I just find pulling off closer sort of to the nut here. Remember right where the strings sort of meet the guitar head here? The nut. The closer you are to that, the pull-offs are just a little bit harder. So we're gonna do it here. So remember we're pulling off in four-note groups using every pull-off we can. So we're gonna go 8, 5, 8, 5, 2 pull-offs, right? That was 4 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we're gonna start on this note, the next note on the way down. So we started there. Now we're gonna start the scale again there. All right, so that was 4 notes with only 1 pull-off. So there's only 1 pull-off because I play 1 note on that string and then 2 notes on that string that I can pull off and then 1 note on this string. So if you're only playing 1 note on a string, you can't pull off, right? So this pattern is gonna go it's gonna have a pattern of 2 pull-offs and then 1 pull-off, just because that's how it works. So pull off, pull off, pull off, and then the next one is we're gonna do a 8-5 pull-off on the B string and a 7-5 pull-off on the G string, right? All right, so if we add that to our pattern, we have. So that was 3 groups of 4 notes, pulling off wherever we can. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we'll add 1 more for today. It's the same thing, so we're gonna pick the next note down on the B string here, 5 on the B string. And then pull off 7-5 on the G string. And then land 7 on the D string. So just to explain one more time, 4 fret groups, right? Starting at the top note and then you start on the next note down. So this is our top note here on 8, right? And then what's the next note in our scale on the way down? It's 5. And then what's the next note in our scale down? It's gonna be 8 on the B string. And then what's the next note in our scale that we're gonna start on? It's gonna be 5 on the B string. And so we want to practice this week to get all 4 of those patterns in a row, nice and snappy. And if mine sounds better than yours does right now, just remember I've been doing the fairy finger stretcher for years and years now, and that's why mine sounds better than yours. So don't skimp on your warm-ups. These pull-off things and all the stuff we're doing on the guitar, it really requires that you're working on your hand strength. So don't get discouraged. I want to show you a couple more open chords that we're going to use. So we've learned E minor, right, to go with our fast car song. That was the very first chord we learned. 0 on the E string, 2 on the A string, 2 on the D string, 0 on the G string, 0 on the B string, 0 on the E string, and you strum all 6 strings. So this is another one. This note on the G string there, that's kind of like the note that's making that chord minor. It's kind of making it a little bit sad. So in order to make this E minor chord major, we want to lift up that note on the G string by putting our finger on 1 on the G string. So I showed you how to make E minor using these fingers, your middle finger and your ring finger. some of you might have just done this, right? Because that probably is nice and easy and works really well. And there's nothing wrong with that. I like doing it like this because then it kind of just reminds me how easy it is to make an E major chord. Right? So if it E minor, and then all I have to do is pop my finger down on 1 on the G string, and we've got an E major chord. And if you remember, in our finger exercise we learned last time, we were kind of doing the top of an E major chord, right? We'll get back to that in a second. So right now, we got E major. I want you to experiment, try moving this just 1 up. So this is also something I want you to do. If you learn a chord, you know, move it around. If you just try things on the guitar, you're gonna get all kinds of wonderful surprises back. And if you don't like how it sounds, then you don't do it again. But if you get a happy accident, or you just try something on the guitar and it sounds great, then you're writing music. You're creating your own sounds on the guitar, and that's awesome. You don't have to wait for anyone to tell you what to do. So if we take this E major chord, move it up 1, then we kind of get this Phrygian. That's a fancy word for a scale, but it's kind of like a Spanish sounding little deal. And then if we move this up 2 more frets, you've kind of got like a bit of a flamenco sounding sort of riff there. So you can impress your friends. So E minor, E major. I want to show you A minor and A major right now. So far all we've learned about A is we've got like this open A power chord, right? And the 3-finger version, right? So when we're talking about power chords, we're talking about a chord that isn't major or minor. It's only got 2 notes in it, and it doesn't have that 3rd note in it to decide whether it's like happy or sad sounding, basically, right? So that's an A chord, and we don't have that 3rd note in it to decide. It's just kind of a nice chunky rock chord, right? But there's not a note in there that's making it major or minor. So I think also in the last lesson I showed you with the slide that these 3 strings in the middle, the D string, the G string, and the B string, they make a chord already if you just play them. So in order to make an A chord, we're going to play play all those strings on the same fret. So then we have the open A string, and then we're just making that chord with all those 3 strings on the same fret. Yeah, A major can be tricky. It's like not my favorite chord because you really got to squish all your fingers on there. I like doing it with my last fingers because they're smaller, and that way I can have this guy free to do other stuff. Or maybe you want to do it that way. I'm not going to tell you the right or wrong way to do an A chord. You kind of just do it the way that's most comfortable for you. But the most important thing is 0 on the A string, and then 2 on the D string, 2 on the G string, 2 on the B string, and then 0 on the high E string. And we're going to omit the low E string, right? Why? Because this is an A chord, so we want this A note to be the lowest note we're playing. It's important. So now we can see we've got, it's got that happy sound. So this is the power chord, right? But then we add that note on the B string, all of a sudden it's saying something. It's saying I'm a major chord. So A major. A minor is going to kind of look like an E major chord, except we've sort of just like moved our fingers up to the skinnier strings, right? So now I'm playing 2 on the D string with my middle finger, and 2 on the G string with my ring finger, and then 1 on the B string with my index finger, and 0 on the high E string. And this is an A minor chord, so we still want to make sure this A note, the A string, is the lowest note in the chord. Right? So now we can hear that it's got that minor sound. So we got power chord, we got major, And then we got minor. So this is important because coming up we're going to be learning E form and A form bar chords. I don't know if you've heard about bar chords. They're a challenge, right? So I just want to kind of get you started here before our lessons run out. So we've been working our way up, right, like power chords, and we know that if we know the bottom note of our power chord, we know what note it is, right? And then we made them into like 3-string power chords with our pinky, right? So I'm doing a power chord on 1, right? 1 on the A string, 3 on the A string, and then 3 on the D string. And then so, what's that like? What am I doing? I'm kind of making an E minor here, right, with these 2 last fingers, and then, but because I've moved it up a fret, right, I need to move the bottom note up a fret, so I'm getting that note with my index finger. Oh, that doesn't quite sound right, does it? I mean, I don't know, it could be cool. It's too spacey. But what we're looking for is we're looking to almost use this index finger like a capo, right? Because if we're gonna take this E shape and move it up, then we need to bring all the open strings up with it as well. And then in order to like clamp all those open strings, I've gotta kind of just mash them all with my index finger. And if your ring finger's free, right? If we're playing a minor chord, then we could even double up. You could use your finger to like help push it down. Right? And then now this finger is squishing all those notes on the 1st fret. And I've got an F minor chord, right? So I went from E minor here. And then I just moved my bottom note up to F, and I moved everything else up 1 fret. And then I have to clamp all the open strings. So they are also up 1 fret. And I've moved my E minor chord up to an F minor chord, right? And then I could move that up to a F sharp minor, G minor. And the same goes for the major version of that, right? So if we could learn to make an E major with our last 3 fingers, and then so we can save this index finger to be our little capo, our bar, right? So I'm playing an E minor here, 2 on the A string with my ring finger, 2 on the D string with my pinky, and then now I'm grabbing 1 on the G string with my middle finger, right? Move it up, right? So we said we have that Spanish sounding thing, but that's not what we're looking for right now. We're looking to move the whole E major chord up to an F major chord, right? So E major, I'm gonna move everything 1 up, but that means I have to also bring all the open strings 1 up by mashing them all with my index finger. And this time, because my index finger has to play on the G string to make it major, I can't even double up. So I have an F major chord, right? A lot of people think that F is the hardest chord, right? Because it's really, barring is hard. So if you're having a hard time with this, don't be discouraged. It's gonna come. Just practice your warm-ups. Just don't. But the reason this is good to know is because there's some chords that you can only play as bar chords, right? There's some chords that like none of the open strings are gonna help you play that chord, so then you're gonna have to just bar them. All right, so if you know how to play E minor and E major with your last 3 fingers, like I'm doing here, saving your index finger for your bar, then you can then go up the musical alphabet and find any chord you want. E major, F sharp major, G major, G sharp major, A major, right? A sharp major, B major, C major, C sharp major, D major, D sharp major, and then E major again, right? Because we're at the 12th fret. You can also do the same thing with A bar chords, but this time we're using the A string as our bottom string, right? So we'll start off with the minor, which is easier, right? So we're making an A minor with our last 3 fingers. Looks like an E major, but we've just moved it up to the skinnier strings. So there's A minor, move it up, but then I have to move all the open strings up too. So A sharp minor. Remember that my bottom note is now on the A string here. So I'm not even, at this point I don't even, you can if you want, you can get the bottom string, but I'm kind of ignoring it, right? So then my bar is kind of just, that can help you too. B minor, C minor, etc. A major bar chords, they are tricky. They're not my favorite, right? So you kind of, I told you I like to do it with my last 3 fingers, right? I like doing that, saving this finger in case I need to use to bar it, right? So A, so then I've got 2 on the D string, 2 on the G string, 2 on the B string. And then can you move that up 1 and bar it? That is really, really tough to do, squeezing all those. A lot of people, they'll do something like, if you're kind of double jointed, you can kind of like try and mash them all with your ring finger. But then then that's kind of tough to get it out of the way of the top string, but that's okay. Or me, this is how, I don't know, this is just how I've learned to do it. It's tough, but now that my pinky's strong from doing all my warm-ups, I can do it. And I kind of just double joint my pinky to mash all 3 strings. But everyone does this very differently. A bar chords are hard. And I just wanted to show you this before our lessons are over, because bar chords are a big part of playing guitar. If you're playing in like a F sharp or a flat key that doesn't have a lot of open chords, then you're gonna have to get used to bar chords. Here's sort of a fun way to get used to them though. If we're playing in the key of E, then these open B and E strings are gonna really work in that key no matter what we're playing, right? So then if you wanted to bar an A chord, which is in the key of E, you could move everything up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, in which case you're gonna have to then move your bass note up 5, right? So this, right, remember that this 5 is A, that's where all our scales start, right? And then so I'm kind of doing a bar chord, but I'm not actually mashing the top 2 strings. I'm not doing that really hard thing of like mashing all those strings. I'm just getting the bottom string and leaving those 2 strings open. Oh, and it kind of sounds nice, right? Those strings really work. So I got E, and I'm gonna move this up to A major, and even B major. B major is also gonna sound really good. So A sharp, B major. So you can hear those open B and E strings are just ringing, right? So you can hear the low notes, I'm moving them down because that's where my strings are, but those top notes are staying the same because they're just nice and open. You can do the same thing on the A string chords, and kind of, if you remember hardest button to button, it's kind of like a 3-string power chord this way, and then that way we can still leave the B and the E strings open. So if you remember hardest button to button, we have this like open A power chord, right? But we could also, just for fun, to hear those nice open strings ringing out, we could play that chord. That's right. I got 0 on the A string, 2 on the D string, 2 on the G string, and then 0 on the B string and 0 on the E string. Right? And then you could move that up 2 to B. Right? And that means I have to move my bottom note up 2. And then I could move that up 2 to C sharp. All right, so B, C, C sharp. You're always keeping track of your bottom note. Your bottom note is telling you what chord it is. And then so I'm doing the same kind of hardest button to button power chord, but I'm also playing those open strings because they sound good. And another great one is you can get this E note again. You can play like an E chord on the A string, right? And then that's going to sound great. So C sharp, D, D sharp, E. We still got our 3-string power chord with our open strings. Right, and it's just, it's really nice to have those open strings ringing out. That's part of the fun part of guitar, is to be able to like move around notes on one string and have other strings just be ringing out. So have a lot of fun with that and practice that, because if you practice these open chords, you're gonna be working your fingers out to be able to play full bar chords. If you can't play full bar chords right away, don't worry, that is pretty normal. We're gonna learn the next part of our flamenco exercise now that we know an A minor chord. And just for fun, I'm gonna get my flamenco guitar. Make sure it's in tune. See, that trick sounds way funner on like the right guitar, right? And people get the idea, like, oh, I get it. You're playing flamenco music. Okay, so last time, what did we learn? We were making the top of an E major chord, and we were using different fingers, and there's a reason, because we kind of have to, we're doing a turnaround that is gonna make us happy that we're using the fingers that we're using. Right, so we got 2 on the D string with our middle finger, 1 on the G string with our index finger, leaving the B and the E strings open. And then with our thumb, we pick D string, we get that open E string with our middle finger in between each note. So D string, G string, B string, D string. And that was 1 round, right? And we're gonna kind of practice that on a loop. So really practice things on a loop. The longer you play something, the more you kind of like get into it, and the more the music's gonna settle in your brain and in your body. But really try and get into a groove of doing something. Try and get it to doing something until you forget that you're doing it. Don't just be like, oh, I know what notes I should play. I've been told, like, just do it until you're not even thinking about it. That's the way the music's really gonna come out of you. So hopefully you can play that on kind of a loop. Maybe I'm playing it fast. Maybe you're playing it slower. Maybe you're playing it like this. That's great. So now we're gonna move. So we're just gonna take these strings, and just like for E major to A minor, we're just gonna like move them up to the skinnier strings. And that's gonna give us the top of an A minor chord now. So now for this chord, our bottom note is on the G string. So now we're gonna pick G string, and then we're still getting the open E string in between every note. G string, B string, G string, and then we're gonna do this little turnaround. 1 on the G string to 3 on the D string. It's kind of like a nice Spanish sounding little turnaround. And then if you put it all together, this is what we've got. So I'm getting both of those with our thumb, so it's kind of interrupting our picking pattern. So it's good to think of like this as when we're moving our thumb and getting the high E string in between, that's kind of a pattern. And then we're doing a turnaround at the end of it that kind of interrupts our pattern. So that's the way I like to think of it. So D string, G string, B string, G string, G string, B string, G string, turn around, start again. And that is a great finger picking exercise to work out the fingers in this hand now. This hand needs work too. Let's check out our note reading from last week. So last week we learned the D string, right? So D string sits right beneath the bottom line on the staff. E on the second fret there is the first line of the staff. F is the first space. G is the second line. A is the space above that. B is the third line, the middle line. C is the space above that. D is the fourth line. E is the space above that, the top space. F is the very top line. And G stands on top of that line. So then we had a little reading assignment that is we'll get our metronome going to count for us. All right, so where's our quarter note? 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. No, actually you read that wrong. I kept on going up, but we're going to the low D string. One more time. So G, 2, A, B, C, 2, 3, 4, D, 2, E, F, G, 2, 3, 4, G, 2. All right, so we have a half note on G, half 2, and then quarter notes on B and A. 1, 2, A and B, sorry. A, B, so 1, 2, 3, 4. And a whole note on C, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we got a half note on D, 1, 2, 3, 4. So, right? Half note, quarter note, G, whole note, 2, 3, 4. And then we go up to the high G, right? Remember we're playing, there's a low G and we got a high G here. So so quarter notes, G, F, E, D, and then C, 2, 3, 4. So all together, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, notes reading's over. Not a big deal. But the thing, are you following the notes up and down the staff? Just like tying your brain to like following the notes up and down and hearing the notes going up and down. Ear training. Last week, using all the notes we're learning here, we were gonna try and play Ode to Joy, right? That's as far as we were gonna try and make it last time, right? So there's our starting note, na, na, na. We know we have to go up from there, na, 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 na. The next note's the same. Can you hold it? Can you hold it in your head? na, 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 na. So you can kind of hear that you're just going back the way you came. Right? And if you, so we're going lower than the E string, so that means we have to go down to the B string. But we're not, it's not a huge jump, so I'm not jumping down to the lowest note on the B string. I'm kind of jumping down to like the highest note that I'm playing on the B string, right? Because if I'm playing the scale in order, I'm going to go from the lowest note on the E string to the highest note on the B string. All right, so now, all right, hopefully we made it that far. Na, and then what's the next note? Na, na. So we're going lower. I got to go lower than this note. Oh, there we go. La, 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 la. So, see if you can play up to there this week. Right? And then if you think ahead, then you realize that there's another section coming up that sounds really familiar, right? Da 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 da, and then it comes out da 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 da. Okay, so you've already figured that part out. So if you can remember, I already figured out how to play that part, and I can hear that part's coming up next, right? Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da, 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 right? So it's just got a slightly different ending. The first one ended da, 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 and the real ending is. So I just hope, I hope you're having fun picking out melodies on your own. I'm not gonna, the point isn't to show you how to play that song. The point is that hopefully you are figuring out the melody on your own. For our last trick, we're going to learn sort of an intro to our picking exercise using the notes we learn in open position. So we're going to play this. All right, so that was all our notes on the E string. E, F, G, F, G, F, G, F. Or you could think about it in frets. 0, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1. So if you can play that, we're off to a good start. And then we're going to do the same thing on the B string. 0, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1. B, C, D, C, D, C, D, C. All right, so if we put it all together, we got. And then we're going to do kind of the same trick on the G string, but different frets. So now we're going to go 0, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 0, 1. And then that same turnaround, 3, right? 1 on the G string to 3 on the D string. So if you put it all together, so that kind of gives you a nice intro to your picking pattern. And this one's kind of fun to just kind of speed up, right? I don't play this one to a metronome. It's kind of just fun to like speed up and then see how fast you can get. And then when you've reached critical speed, then you finish it off with that bad boy. But the idea, I kind of like this because it reminds me of like, you know, there's like free time in music, right? So you almost want to add some drama to it, right? So we're not worried about like playing to a beat. That's kind of not what we're going for. So imagine, just take all the time you want and imagine that like there's a spotlight on you and there's cameras everywhere. And You know, so kind of take your time. Oh, I did something there. See, sometimes I don't even realize what I'm doing. It just becomes natural, right? Like I hammered on one of those, right? I was trying to add extra sort of feeling to it. I was trying to add extra sort of feeling to the notes. So I did a little hammer on there, right? So that means I picked it early, right? Instead of picking it right when I made the note, I picked it early and hammered the note on. So you could add a little trick like that. So the key is to like play this little intro with as much feeling as you can. Right? You could mix them up with between staccato and legato, right? That's another big part of music. Right? And then this one, you notice sometimes I like do like a lot on here, right? You can kind of build up the tension. Maybe get quieter, get louder. And then finally end up with your little turnaround. 3, 2. And you've got a little masterpiece you can play people on the guitar. But the point is to just, yeah, really just like get into the sound of the guitar and the feeling of the guitar. And this isn't one where you want to be worried about ones and twos and stuff. I want you kind of just explore being dramatic on the guitar. So we got one more lesson coming up. I can't wait. Thanks for sticking with us this far. And we'll see you next time.